Thank you all. Welcome to this session. And before this, I think Jesse had a fantastic session. I think it was mind-boggling to see what's happening there. What my job will really be to bring all of you to a little reality check, right? Being a big proponent of how to make what we call money out of our AI, right? So how do we bring that to life? And in our organizations, I'm sure in the audience we have multiple organizations from various domains. We face certain challenges, and I would be really talking in the next maybe 30 minutes on what are those, I would say them hacks to make AI real, get it out in the market, on, say, a value out of it, show value in your organization. So while the last session was really, really mind-boggling, I would really bring you down to the fact that how do we make money faster? And that's really going to be the topic, and would love to hear from you as well. So I will start with a very simple question to the audience, and let me see some hands, okay? How many of you have played yourself or has accompanied your kids on a Lego block? All of you? Fantastic. And my fascination with Lego blocks is not because I have won any competition and not that I can crack it. It's just, the small story I will like to say before I get into the abstraction of it to the lives that we lead, is that I was, in fact, I have a 10-year-old, and I've seen that pattern of his Lego block journey, right? And he started with the first one. If you see that bunch of Legos, and parents here will associate, means one room full of this colored, different sizes, and it's like scattered in the floor, right? I'm sure all of you are picturing that in your mind almost. Now, earlier, when he was like 3, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, I literally could do my work and he would spend 2 hours trying to figure out a building, right? And when I went back and saw his building, I was like, for the love of my son, I used to say, wow, this is creative. This is great. But when I looked back, I said, what has he made? Some like chaotic buildings. They don't have a pattern, but they're nice looking structures. Now he's 10 years old, and in the last year, I've been interacting with him on this Lego block. It's fascinating, okay? And I'll come to it why I'm talking about all of this. Is that his chaotic buildings, he just started reducing his time on his Lego block time, which I could get 2 hours for my work while he's playing, to like a 30 minutes, 40 minutes, he's done. I said, what's happening, man? Why is he finishing it off by 40 minutes? So I went up to him, I said, Baba, what are you doing? So he said, Mama, I'm smart, of course. What I've done is I've created some small structures of mine, kept it in my box. So what I did was that I did a part of a block, part of a house, part of that Batman, whatever mobile that they make. Now what is happening is, he's already created what I was thinking later as a pre-built structure, right? And I was fascinated. I said, Baba, this is cheating. The Lego Council will bar you or something, because you're supposed to start from first principle, isn't it? Like you have that box, you start picking up. He made one very interesting statement. He made a statement saying, it is my building. I am building this building. This is the way I want to build it. So I will figure out what suits best for me. I will create my pre-built box, whether I build it in like 20 colors, I build a big block, small block, but it will help me to make that 2 hours into 40 minutes, and I still now are creating much more complicated structures than what he used to build when he was 2, 3, 4, I don't even remember. I took a step back, and I said, what is this guy doing? And it's very simple how sometimes 10 years can throw some very interesting concepts to you. And from there on, I think a lot of organizations, when I've now started interacting with them and have seen how they have scaled, it's nothing but a Lego blocks that they are creating. And I think this is what my topic is today. In your organizations, do you have pre-built Lego block structures? Number one, because the topic being, how does it crunch your time to market? How do you bring it to life faster? Second, he made an important point, and I will maybe build on that. I'm sure in this, all the organizations that you belong, the adoption of your AI algorithms has a very interesting statement which comes from the user. The user, in some, who the users are, the consumers of your algorithms, they would say, but I wanted something else. Please change this. Please change that. Or, sometimes when you're looking at all our Gen AI current queries and, they want, you build it in my environment because it should be, the word is contextualized with my data. So you see this very interesting thing. How much standardization and customization can be done for your organizations using this very simple, if I would say, in absence of a word, Lego block your AI solutions. Think over it. If you had a solution which is an end-to-end, let's say, a customer service operations, and you have an end-to-end operation, there is data coming in, you're real-time classifying it, you're creating unstructured, you're putting Gen AI on top of it. All of this is an end-to-end to what? At the end of it, you want your customers to be satisfied, you want your customer experience to go up, you want the happiness of the customers who are interacting with that system to go. But in between, you're actually not having one AI solution at all. It is a bunch of AI solutions. And now if you think from my 10-year-old's Lego block structures, the organization has to create their own pre-built structures. AI solution cannot be built like, one day we'll build one big, Taj Mahal and just go and present it to our users, and the users say, okay, I'll buy this. They have to be co-creating your solution. So one of the learnings which we have is that instead of starting all over again and having these algorithms built by your data scientists, your ML engineers, your people who are building it, every time creating a building which looks different, and especially if you're looking at multi-geography organizations, every geography will have their own nuances. How can I allow the user with such kind of what we call, known pre-built structures? And the interesting part is these pre-built structures may not be also standard by industry. For example, I will give you a few when I go along. Some of these could be your own structures, which is your own estimation, your own simulation, your own forecasting COE. Some of these are cutting it horizontal. I'm sure there are many people who would be doing a lot of work in forecasting, but imagine the set of forecasting algorithms is a box. Whether you are using it in FPA, you are using it in demand, you're using it in the order forecasting, the box has to be owned by an individual, by a team, by a hub, whatever you want to call it. They are responsible for making that box better and better and making sure that all the consumers, the word maybe I'm using that, pluggable. So making sure your AI solutions are blocked and they're pluggable. So this brings to a very interesting way. In fact, what I will show you next is that, traditionally, I'm sure we have moved away, and all of us have moved away from that typical, we do that initial part, and then there is this 2 months of model building, and that has also been crunched from earlier, and we've done much better in terms how we build our models. Our models is a broad term I'm using. Then there is a 1-month pilot run, okay? And and I'm sure in Indian market as well as international markets, you would do the pilot, you will test it, you will wait for the measurement, And then what we will do, you will prepare it for scale. So that's I would say, more or less from my experience, and I think from all of yours here, a typical cycle. Now what happens when we bring these Lego blocks? And I'm using that very loosely, and it's called pre-built solution, it's called accelerators, it's called, you can call it X, Y, Z. What is happening here is that the first month, which is exploratory, goes nowhere. If we do not do that groundwork well, if we do not do our exploration well, no matter how much you build these models, they need that groundwork. They need that. People need to touch and feel. They need to look at the explainability. They need to know what is your insights, right? You cannot take that away. So in an AI solution adoption journey, that first step stays. Let it stay. What you can really do, if you have already built in a forecasting Lego block, or if you build a let's say a pricing estimation, an elasticity Lego block, or let's say you've built a NLP, a query language Lego block. So all of this can really shrink down that 2 months, and we've seen to a level of 70%, where you've already done this algorithm. You have got a pluggable set, forecasting and be forecasting, right? So you plug in, and that 2 months or 2.5 months really gets shrink down. And then what happens? You spend your time again in that pilot. Let's be very honest and very real here. That pilot requires our the people who are building the algorithms to be cognizant of the fact how they are using it, how the user is going to appreciate it, whether they are interacting. So those are very critical. So spend time there. And then what happens, again, because you have made your pre-built solutions pluggable, they are made ready for production. From day one, they are made ready for production. Therefore, you're preparing for scale, which is after people have signed off. Preparation for scale can really again be, like, you don't need to say, now that if you have given me a sign-off, I will take 3 months to scale. That I don't think we can say anymore, okay? So we have to get your pre-built structures pluggable, production ready from day one. So if you look at it, more or less, I think, and then you have the feedback loop. So 5 months to quick 50% cut is possible, absolutely possible. And now you see the number of AI solutions that you can produce for your, and that I use the word produce very carefully. You need to sort of create a factory of Legos, factories of pre-built. Organizations now are creating their new hubs, saying that these pre-built structures of AI algorithms will be created by a group of people whose job is also to maintain it, make it sure that it's usable, make sure it is pluggable, make sure it is production ready. And they will help us to build these new customization. Now see what's happening here. And I give you an example. In Germany, and suppose it is produced out of India, and in Germany, they have certain nuances of their local market. Their SKUs are different, their brands are different. I'm assuming that many things will be different from the consumer perspective, if I just take that example. What will happen is, they will be participant. Like to my earlier point, they are making their own building. So many times, the setback that you get in the terms of adoption, when you go to your counterpart, your user, and the user says that the lunch that you have prepared for me, I thought it would be different. Because in my market, this food doesn't hold good, or the cutlery doesn't hold good. Then you have to go back, and you have to see how you have to make, and I think it's a life's journey there. Instead of that, give him the parts, give him the prowess to say, we know how to make it together, we'll make it with you. And suddenly the building that the guy will put up, and I'm using the building very metaphorically here, the solution that they will put up will be very, very usable for their market. And the time to adopt it in a Germany market produced out of India suddenly will be crunched. So my 2 cents, and I thought it will be important for me to share this in this forum, is that if you have already not thought about the solutions that you are producing out of your kitchen, need to be production ready, need to have modular components. go back, and maybe we should, all of us, should think which are those solutions which can be made into smaller modules. How much crunch can I do? Again, let's not everything go into that kitchen. It has to be chosen well. And nowadays, I think most of our solutions have those modularities in it. Said that, I'm just throwing a few which I feel are the most common, and I think we have done it for multiple places. So we can say that these are known common use cases which you can completely deliver using a modular solution or this pre-built solution. So for example, if you're just looking at, say, a very interesting one, so like commodity price. So this is the reason I take this, it's complicated. And if anybody is here from the procurement or commodity side of the world, hedging and all of that, they will relate to this. If I today take a commodity steel, and what we do here is I'm trying to predict for the procurement people from the raw material supply side, when to buy, how much to buy, is it the right time to buy, say, a cotton or a steel or a rubber. And at any point of time, I'm having plethora of news coming in real time to help us predict that price dynamically. So every day there will be news coming in which will impact that price, and that is how we will be competitive in the market. And the procurement planner will be able to do it. Now in this, there is a forecasting part of it, there is an NLP part of it, there is a simulation part of it. So I'm just breaking this into these modules. There are many organizations where the procurement team has already done the forecasting part of it. And for us and for you, when your procurement teams or your, the users are looking at it, maybe they're already doing what they're doing. So you need to plug the simulation of it, the exploration of it, and the NLP of it. Now, you will not throw out all the stuff that they've been doing and build the building all over again. What you will say, you will take the components and you will say, we will plug it and make this AI ready. Make sure that you are taking everyday news, reacting to it real time. So, very interesting example where today if I have to move to steel, rubber, and any other commodity, my time from one commodity to the next is cut down by 50%. So I don't need to do it all over again. Now I have what we call the nuts and the bolts and the blocks already to solve this problem. So every time I go, every time I build a new commodity, I don't need to rediscover it at all. Similar, I'm sure pricing or a forecasting. Forecasting is our bread and butter for most of us. How dynamic is your forecast? Are you taking forecast? Are you allowing yourself to have simulation? Are you allowing your user to put in forecasts? Are you allowing your base forecast to be overridden? Now a very simple one, I'm sure forecasting is the most useful one, I think, from a generic point of view, that if I had a forecast, and just to give an example of a pre-built solution, you can only plug in an overriding facility of feedback loop. Everything is done. I'm sure all of your organizations are doing good forecasting algorithms. All you need to do is now make it more dynamic, so you can plug in the simulation, you can plug in the overrides, you can plug in an user interface. So all of these, in this particular pre-built solutions, they're all modular. So at any point of time, I can pick up one block and put it on the other. So think about how you are building your AI solutions. Over the last few, I think, the successful ones and the multi-countries or the large-scale ones, I've seen even in the largest scales possible, this thought process has worked. So these are some of the, I would say, very, very doable, modular way of working use cases. Now, if you look at it very interestingly, they sound use cases because they are building blocks towards solving a marketing mix problem or solving a trade promo. So trade promo also will require 3 to 4 optimization, attribution. Each of them are my Lego blocks. And I can put it all together, and anybody can put it all together. Your user, you can give user. So this actually gives your user a lot of power. This is another important, I know I'll jump into that, but the adoption of your AI will, how much power can you give to your end user? co-creation with you as an AI practitioner and your business user should be co-creating this. And therefore, the only way you can bring in the standardization versus customization question is only by giving them the toolkits. Otherwise, and I'm giving an example, if the same India production house of trade promo optimization doesn't provide the toolkit, then the Germany promo optimization will look different, and the South Africa will look different, or in India, your different stakeholders will be using different forecasting algorithms. So what it means is you're standardizing some part of the building, and you're allowing them to then create their own building, like my son says, this is my own building, right? So that's what I'm trying to convey to the audience. So, and obviously using, these pre-built, the crunching part of it, I'm just showing that these are all things which have been done using pre-built solutions. They're very modular in nature. Whether it's demand forecasting at a very high scale level, or a customer value management, or it's an interesting one, and this one I will just spend some time. Business models can change. So for example, if I had to talk about this, that we had to do this price forecast of tire, right? And this tire as a commodity is a component of many raw materials which lead up to the tire. To help this company to be able to price the tire while the contracting is happening with the vendor real time, I cannot build one big solution which has to run sequentially. Not possible. I need that solution of pricing to sit what we call at the edge, right? So for me to have this IoT data coming in, analytics solutions built in, I need that solution to be so modular that it should be able to run. You don't want them to like, okay, the contractor, the vendor is sitting on the other side. I have to, talk about a pay-per-use model that as you go, as you pay. And then I'm getting the usage data, and I'm sitting, and I have to wait for my 5 sequences to happen. It will not happen. So therefore, you need blocks to be plugged in at the edge. And for this, go back to how you would have built this model. If I would have built this model using your traditional way of having all the steps bound together, you would not be able to do this. So for able to do this, you need the modular components so that you can plug it in at the edge and be able to drive these values. This is a new business model development, so which basically means you can think of other modules of business. So we just talked about this. Yeah, so all of these are real, guys. So I think I'm going to pause here. I've got, I think, a good amount of time left. And this is a theme that I wanted to talk about. How do you use pre-built solutions to drive the modularity and the nimbleness in your business? Reiterating the point, think about this question. How much of your AI solutions are standardized, and how much are you allowing for customization? Typically, in the industry generally, 60-40 is a good way to start. 60 standardized, 40 customized. Moving to a 70-30, 80% standardization is not very healthy, at least from an adoption perspective. Because if you make such, obviously I'm not talking about automation, because those components are pretty standard. If you're doing a digital signature, there is no other. I'm talking about value use cases, the kinds that you saw now. And so I'm just going to go back to the slide and hold on to that. Yeah. So, and another one which is very important here is, I'm sure MLOps is something which all of us are looking at. The thinking of MLOps should be done even with one algorithm. So if you have in your factory even 2 AI solutions, because you are in different stages in your journey, even if you have 2 algorithms, 2 solutions, which is in the production, do not delay the MLOps decision. Make sure that MLOps as a thought process, as an automation process, is embedded then and there, because that's how you will be able to modularize. You will see the components. And the other interesting part of that pre-built solutions, because it is so co-creation, people can see it. It's not a black box. So the explainability of your AI solutions becomes much better because they know the blocks. They know that this is my optimization, okay? There's a great person who's done the optimization well. This is my attribution, and this is my simulation. I now know where I've gone wrong or what can I do with each of these. So think about this way of doing things, and I would leave and I will take some questions from the audience if any discussion points on this way. If you have already tried, love to hear what's your experiences like. I'll pause. Yeah.
Hi. Hi, good morning. My name is Saket and I come from Shell.
Yes, sure. Yes, sure.
So, the previous topic that you were talking about on the AI forecasting for the tire market.
Okay.
How did you handle the uncertainties? Maybe specific in 2020, there was, especially in India, there was a tire import ban that was imposed. Were you predicting that, or was AI able to take up those uncertainties?
So if I heard you correctly, you're talking about how can AI take into the shocks that are there,
More or less.
Shocks, yeah.
More or less, yes.
The answer to that question is the first time shock of a particular nature. I don't think a lot of AIs will be able to do justice that the model will be able to take it right away. However, the shocks have a pattern, right? So if you look at commodities, for example, in fact, that's I think the question. There are multiple levels of shocks, whether it's Ukraine war or it is, sometimes the supplies are, so shocks are of various nature. Now what happens is once there is a pre-warning of a shock, which basically will solve in two ways. One, you can create early warnings, KPIs in your lead indicators in your dashboards. Best way of doing it and the simplest way of doing it is in your supply dashboards, if I would take it in this way, that I can already see some early warning KPIs, which are correlated KPIs, which are moving haywire, which basically means that something's coming. So therefore, that's one way of doing it, and you try to classify that shock in the best possible way when it first time hits your system, saying that this is like an economic shock or this is like a political, geo-economic shock. So you put it and classify. And then you incorporate it as a dummy variable in the model as we would do it. Not getting too much technical, but in that case, the other way of doing it is, and it's an interesting one, which only AI could have done it in this world, which is have continuous news board. Continuously search all your sources and get as much news as possible flowing into this. This forecaster, which you saw, has the news incorporated. So we could reach a particular accuracy of 98%, 95%, and it's really mind-boggling, but it is because we have the dynamic news flowing in. So it automatically takes in what it takes in, right? So you can do this in two different ways, I would say. But otherwise, obviously, if COVID happens at a large scale, you may not do it in the first wave.
Thank you. Second question here is, the pre-built solutions that you're talking about, how different are they from the COTS application or commercial off-the-shelf application?
There is a difference, I mean to say. The difference being in the fact that if I understand, it's off-the-shelf applications that you're talking about. The off-the-shelf applications are still made to a particular extent where it's still a box, right? It's like this. Can you open the box and break its components and only take one of them? Maybe not. The good part of pre-built solutions, first, it's yours. I'm saying it's yours, right? You know what you have done. Your organization knows that they have an authority on every part of it. Second, you can break the box. You can break the box, you can see its components. The components obviously can't be broken to the last leg. Each of these components have a level I which it can break. And therefore, it's very different. You can now you might have to buy one off-the-shelf application and just plug it. But to be very frank, there are certain applications which you should take off the shelf. Like I said, some of them are no-brainers. You don't have to open the box, you don't have to break the box. But for these complicated ones where you have to finally come to a value proposition, you better build it in a way where you have your flexibility and your users have a co-creation methodology. Otherwise, you take an application, present it to the user, he said, this doesn't solve my problem. So I feel that's the difference.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, here.
Yeah.
So I have two questions. First one is, how is this a sustainable business thing? I'll tell you why. I have a similar setup, building blocks kind of a thing for ML, and the problem is...
Can you be a little louder?
The problem is, in ML, most of the time is used for data cleaning and data preparation, right? Maybe I have an algorithm in place as a metadata-driven script or something, but I may be working a lot of time in preparation. So how is this business relevant? The second part of it is, it involves an upfront investment to set up all these things, or migrate it to an larger company or something. So in that case, I would rather go traditional than go this way. So how do we convince people saying that this is right for you, even though you invest upfront?
No, first and foremost, not everything can go this route, number one. So you need to make choices of which problems or which solutions or value propositions or use cases you want to solve using these pre-built solutions. That choice is very critical. Second to your, I think the first question was not very clear, but the second question I understood is, how are these sustainable? Very important question. Let me hold on to that question. To make these pre-built solutions sustainable, you need, as you build more and more, a team whose main job, the main KRA for the team, is to make and maintain these solutions. If you make these solutions and they stay in a, they just stay non-refreshed, not updated, not usable, not pluggable, then you'll not be able to run it. Because then when the market is coming to you, you will be not ready. So to be AI ready, if I would put it, and to crunch that time to market, you do need somebody to maintain this, and a good way, and not the standard, or maybe, is that you create a small hub, which we call an asset hub or an accelerator hub, or within your teams, whose job is over and above what they're doing, maybe maintain these assets, maintain these solutions. We do it that way. It works out very well, that we get these additional people will maintain these solutions, keep it on the shelf, and their job becomes, as you go along, to make sure it is used, right? So that's how you will sustain. If you put it in your mainstream, it will not sustain.
Yeah, as you rightly mentioned, during the process of democratizing, we make a dependency on a single team. So that's threatening to the organization. How do we handle that?
Can you repeat that? I can't hear you.
During the process of, the full of Agile AI, we make it, say that we democratize the AI platform,
Okay.
right? But what we do is we create a dependency on a single set of team, right? So this is a threat for an organization. How do we handle that?
Okay. That dependency of the team is a common thing, right? I mean to say you're dependent on team on many things, but yeah, maybe what is happening is that there's dependency on the particular Agile or the people who are creating these. So another way of doing it is democratizing it, and you touched upon it, is that you build your solutions, you create something and ask your users also to create solutions, use it and take it as a feedback back into the system. But I still feel good way to is have a control center. Otherwise, there'll be multiple such pre-built solutions. But when an organization becomes a little big, it does do what we call a hub and spoke model of having accelerators. I think the time's up.
Yes, that is unfortunately
that.
our time for questions. Can we hear a big round of applause to the lady
Thank
on
you.
stage, please?